Hey guys, Mike, I'm Rashawn, your executive license coach, back with you again. It's been a minute. Summer has thrown the norms off me, as I'm sure it has with you, but I am back and I wanted to bring you something that I've been seeing a lot more of as we near the end of the summer, seeing a lot more burnout. And maybe you're not familiar with that term. Maybe you're experiencing just a high level of stress and you feel irritable and you don't really know why. There's a good chance you are burnt out, and I want to give a little more details on that and just kind of compare and contrast burnout versus depression, because there are some similarities, there's some overlap. Obviously, there's some overlap between the two, but I want to cover some essential differences and then just give you a brief overview of causes, signs, and treatments for burnout versus depression. So this is a burnout, but this is not the burnout that I'm talking about. This would be a lot more fun, I assure you, but unfortunately, that's not the case. So causes burnout. What is the cause of burnout and what is the cause of depression? How are they similar? How are they different? Now, on a high level, burnout is generally a single source and it's generally external. So that means there's an external stressor that's acting on you or your life and causing over time this burnout, or this kind of, it just wears you down in a sense. Now, burnout is not considered a medical disorder. Versus depression, the cause of depression is often internal. So it's an internal imbalance and it's generally and often unknown. So you can't necessarily sit there and pinpoint, okay, this is what's causing my depression. Versus burnout, you can say, okay, the most common cause is work. I'm very stressed at work. I'm having to work longer hours and that is causing me to feel burnt out. Could be something like parental responsibilities or caregiver responsibilities. Work is the most common, but it's not the only cause. Versus depression is going to be oftentimes the common cause is something like substance abuse, because that has an impact on your chemical imbalance within your body. Childhood trauma, again, deals with your chemicals and regulation. Major life tragedy, maybe somebody you're close to, a family member or a close friend dies. Maybe you're in a car accident. Maybe you have an injury, something along those lines, something that causes a severe and semi-permanent disruption in your life. And then signs. What is a sign that you're burnt out? So if you're stressed all of the time, then that's probably a good sign that you're either burnt out or you're heading towards burnout. So it's something to keep an eye on. Lack of focus, whether that's attention to details at home. Maybe it's productivity at work. And then the third thing is going to be a disgust or extreme disinterest in doing the thing that's causing the stress. So specifically, if it's for you, maybe it's work. You're going to have an extreme disinterest specifically in work. So you're not going to want to go to work. You're going to probably dread having to go to work. And it's going to cause a further degradation, because the more you have to do it, the more stressed and on and on and on. Same thing with parenting. Maybe you've been with your kids all summer and you're just frankly tired of dealing with them. There's no shame in that. Kids can be a lot. They can be very demanding and they can be very disruptive. That doesn't make you a bad parent, but it does mean that you may be burnt out. Now contrast that with depression. Now depression is going to be much more general, much more intrinsic. So you're going to have a hard time getting out of bed. You may have a hard time getting out of bed to do really anything, whether that's eat breakfast, play video games, go on a walk, whatever it is for you. It's going to be hard to do any of those things. Versus burnout, it's going to be hard to do the specific thing that's causing you stress, and everything else is going to be relatively normal. You're going to be pretty hopeless about life, and you may even become suicidal if you're dealing with clinical type depression. And then again, you're going to have a general interest in doing anything at all. And that even includes those things that have commonly brought you joy, or that you have really enjoyed doing. That's going to be a very clear sign that you may be dealing with clinical type depression. So those are the signs. How do we treat it? Now, burnout, being that it's more isolated, it's more focused on one thing and it's more external, it's a little bit easier in most cases to treat. Now, set boundaries to limit your exposure, whether that's at work. You put some boundaries on how often you're going to work, maybe the people you're exposing yourself to at work. Whatever that particular stress is, putting some boundaries in place will help bring you out of that burnt out phase, or ideally help you prevent from ever getting there. Now, contrast that with depression, it's going to vary by severity. Again, there's different levels of depression from very minor to extreme. And depending on where on that spectrum you fall is going to determine how much help and how much treatment you need. For burnout, take a vacation or take time off. That may seem very simple, but that's not easy for some people to do. Prioritize regular self-care, and that's not talking about going once a month to do something for yourself. This is talking about maybe 10 or 15 minutes a day, or at least like an hour a week doing something that you really enjoy that's just for you. So depression, on the other hand, is often going to require medication. So just taking time off or removing yourself from a particular situation is generally not going to be enough to fix the problem. Therapy and medication management, those two will typically be more of a longer term solution. So therapy is going to be getting with a therapist, maybe a psychologist, somebody that's trained in working with behavior and mental health. And then either your primary care doctor could maybe handle some of this, or a psychiatrist is going to be the person that you're going to want to talk to about medication management, because that is what they specialize in. And then in closing, guys, I want you to know that you're not alone, and it's not too late to get help. It's actually never too late to get help. You may be feeling very burnt out. You may be feeling depressed. Maybe you don't even know what you're feeling. And that's okay. That is why we have professionals. And a starting point for you may be something as simple as going to your doctor and just explaining what you're feeling. And maybe it's not depression, maybe it's not burnt out, but maybe you're headed that direction. At least you can get a baseline for yourself and kind of get an understanding of, okay, this is what's been happening, and then they can start tracking it. And if it continues, then maybe there's some intervention needed. But I do want you guys to know that there's resources out there for you. And if you're to the point where you're feeling pretty hopeless and maybe you're even feeling suicidal, I want you to know the Suicide Help Hotline is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And it's very simple to remember. All you have to do is dial 988 from your phone, and somebody will be there to answer the call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So there's literally no time you can call that you shouldn't be able to reach somebody at that number. And there are trained people on the other end of that line that will walk you through and talk you through the crisis that you're in. So don't hesitate to use those resources, because that's what they're there for. Anyway, guys, I hope you're not dealing with any of this. I hope you had a great summer. And I hope that if you have experienced any level of this, that you're getting help. And I do encourage you to do that, because this is not something that will generally resolve itself. Anyway, guys, that's all I got. Be sure to like and subscribe, because I'm going to be putting these out again more regularly now that the summer has wrapped up. Anyway, have a good week, guys. Have a good weekend. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you on the flip side.